Have you ever noticed how life has a strange way of balancing the scales? Sometimes the people who walk away believing they've won eventually discover that success isn't always what it seems. And sometimes the person left behind ends up finding something far more valuable than what they lost. This is one of those stories. The day my divorce became official, Victoria looked happier than I'd seen her in years. Ironically, she looked more excited leaving our marriage than she had on the day we got married. As soon as the paperwork was signed, she walked out of the courthouse with a bright smile on her face. Before she even reached her car, she was already focused on her phone, texting someone with obvious excitement. Not once did she turn around to look at me. I stood there alone in the same worn suit I had been wearing to 6 months of mediation sessions, watching the woman I had loved for 8 years disappear from my life without hesitation. When the dust settled, she received nearly everything: the house, the car, most of the savings, and me. I ended up living in a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat. At the time, it felt like I had lost everything. What I didn't know was that losing everything was exactly what I needed. 3 years later, Victoria would see me again at an upscale charity gala downtown. In less than 5 seconds, her expression would change from confidence to confusion to complete disbelief. She would grab my arms so tightly that her manicured nails dug into my jacket and whisper words I never imagined. Hearing, "Cameron, do you remember me? My name is Cameron Foster, and this is the story of how the worst moment of my life became the beginning of everything 8 years earlier." I was living a simple and predictable life. I worked as an accountant at Harrison and Associates, earning around $65,000 a year. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Bills got paid. The future seemed secure. When Victoria and I first met at a friend's barbecue, she often told me how much she appreciated that stability. "You're dependable," she would say. "You're reliable." Back then, I took those comments as compliments. Yours. Later, I realized they were warnings. Victoria was completely different from me. She worked in marketing for a fast-growing tech company and constantly chased bigger opportunities. Bigger promotions, bigger goals, bigger dreams. She was ambitious in every possible way. And to be honest, I always felt like she was out of my league. When she agreed to marry me after 2 years together, I genuinely felt like the luckiest man alive. Our wedding wasn't extravagant. We couldn't afford the destination ceremony she wanted, so we settled on something more modest. At the time, I believed compromise was part of marriage. Looking back, I think she saw it differently. I still remember our honeymoon in Cancun. One evening, instead of enjoying the sunset, Victoria sat scrolling through social media, looking at photos of luxury weddings and expensive vacations. There was something in her expression. Disappointment. Maybe regret. At the time, I ignored it. The first few years of marriage were comfortable. We bought a small suburban home, adopted a rescue dog named Chester, built routines together. I thought we were creating a life. But around year 5, things began changing. Victoria started spending more time away from home. She stayed late at work, joined a gym with classes that conveniently happened before sunrise and long after dinner. Gradually, I saw less and less of her. New friends appeared, new interests emerged, new habits developed. None of them included me. Whenever I questioned it, she had the same response: "You never want to do anything exciting. Cameron, you're too comfortable. You're satisfied with mediocrity." The words hurt because part of me wondered if she was right. I tried changing. I suggested spontaneous trips. New experiences, different restaurants. Weekend adventures. Nothing worked. If we traveled somewhere, it wasn't exciting enough. If we ate somewhere, it wasn't trendy enough. No matter what I did, it felt like I was always falling short. Eventually, I realized the real issue wasn't the activities. The issue was me. Or at least that's what I believed then. The conversation that ended our marriage happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I had just taken the garbage outside when Victoria asked me to sit down. The moment I saw her face, I knew She had already made her decision. Cameron, she said quietly. I want a divorce. 5 words, 5 simple words that destroyed 8 years of marriage. I asked why, even though I already knew. Because I'm not happy. Because we want different things. Because I deserve more. As she spoke, she looked around our kitchen as if the life we had built together was some kind of prison. Then I asked the question I had been avoiding. Is there someone else? For a brief second. She hesitated. Then she said something that told me everything. That's not relevant. It was all the answer I needed. Later, I learned his name. Damian Reynolds, a consultant at her company. Successful, confident, driving a Tesla. Living in an expensive downtown apartment with incredible city views. Everything I believed I wasn't. The divorce process itself was brutal. Victoria fought aggressively for every asset, with the help of her attorney. She walked away with almost everything. The house, the vehicle, most of our savings, even money that had originally come from an inheritance left to me by my grandmother. Every mediation session felt like another piece of my life being taken apart. Her lawyer kept repeating the same thing. You'll recover, Cameron. You're employed. You're still young. You'll rebuild. What he never mentioned was that Victoria had already started rebuilding long before our marriage officially ended. She simply built her future with someone else the day the divorce became final. She looked like she was heading to a celebration. Instead of the end of a marriage, she wore a white sundress. Her hair was professionally styled. She kept smiling at messages on her phone. When the judge finalized everything, she practically floated out of the courtroom. I watched from inside as Damian greeted her in the parking lot. He wrapped his arms around her, spun her round, kissed her. And together they drove away. Meanwhile, I remained standing there alone for nearly 20 minutes. Trying to understand how someone who once promised forever could walk away so easily. That night, I moved into a tiny apartment above a laundromat on Fletcher Street. The place smelled like detergent and disappointment. I owned almost nothing: a futon, a folding table, a few dishes from a discount store, and a silence so heavy it felt unbearable. That first evening, my brother Lucas called. Cam, are you okay? I stared at the stained ceiling. Depends how you define okay. He immediately offered me a place to stay, a spare bedroom at his house. But I refused, not because I wanted independence. Because I needed answers. I needed to figure out who I was. Without Victoria. Lucas told me I already knew who I was. But he was wrong, because the man I saw in the mirror no longer felt familiar. For the next month, I barely functioned. Work, home, microwave dinners, sleep, repeat. My boss Patricia eventually noticed. One afternoon she pulled me aside. You look exhausted, she said. When was the last time you slept through the night? I honestly couldn't remember. Eventually she forced me to take a week off. At the time, I thought it was because she felt sorry for me. In reality, it became the turning point that changed everything. That week away from work started differently than I expected. For the first couple of days, I did absolutely nothing. I ordered takeout, watched random television shows without paying attention, slept at odd hours, spent most of my time replaying old memories in my head. Every conversation, every argument, every warning sign I had ignored. I kept asking myself the same question. How did everything fall apart so quickly? But on the third morning, something changed. I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt since the divorce. Not sadness, not loneliness, not heartbreak, anger, pure, undeniable anger. I was angry at Victoria for making me feel like I wasn't enough. Angry at Damian for stepping into my life before I was even out of it. But most of all, I was angry at myself. Angry for spending years trying to earn approval from someone who would never be satisfied. I walked into the bathroom and stared at my reflection. Really stared. The man looking back at me wasn't the man I wanted to be. I'd gained weight. My posture was terrible. My eyes looked exhausted. My face carried the expression of someone who had simply stopped fighting. For a long moment, I stood there in silence. Then I asked myself one question. Who are you? The answer came immediately. Someone I don't want to become. That afternoon, I joined a local gym. Nothing fancy. No luxury equipment. No smoothie bar. Just weights, heavy bags, and people who looked like they were rebuilding their lives. One workout at a time. The guy behind the front desk was built like a tank. His name was Marcus Blake. After signing my membership papers, he looked me over. First day, he asked, "Yeah, what are you training for?" I thought about Victoria. The divorce, the humiliation, the empty apartment, the years I had wasted trying to be someone else's definition of enough. Then I answered, "Honestly, everything." Marcus smiled. Good answer. He became one of the most important people in my new life. He taught me proper form. Discipline. Consistency. Patience. Most importantly, he taught me that pain could either destroy you or strengthen you. The choice was yours. Every morning before work, I trained. Every evening after work, I trained again. The first week nearly killed me. My muscles burned constantly. Walking upstairs felt impossible, but I kept showing up. Again. And again. And again. One evening, after watching me push through another exhausting workout, Marcus sat beside me, going through a divorce. He asked. I looked surprised. That obvious. He laughed. You've got that look. What look? The look of a man trying to outrun his past. I couldn't argue with that. Because he was right. At first, I was training to forget, but eventually, I started training to become better. And that changed everything. Within 2 months, I had lost noticeable weight. My energy improved. My confidence started returning. But the biggest transformation wasn't physical. It was mental. Instead of spending lunch breaks feeling sorry for myself, I started reading books about business, finance, investing, leadership, personal growth. I had worked in accounting for years, but for the first time, I started studying wealth creation instead of simply managing numbers. One book changed my thinking completely. The compound effect. The message was simple. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary results. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt because I realized something. My marriage hadn't failed overnight. It failed through years of small choices, years of accepting less, years of avoiding growth, years of becoming comfortable. If small actions could destroy a life, then small actions could rebuild one too. From that point forward, I became obsessed with improvement. Every commute became a classroom. Instead of listening to music, I listened to business podcasts. Instead of watching television every night, I studied financial planning. I enrolled in online courses, attended workshops, reached out to professionals who had built successful consulting businesses. Most never responded. A few did. Those few conversations changed my future. 6 months after the divorce, I finally had a plan, a real one, not wishful thinking, not motivation, a strategy. I would spend 1 year building clients on the side while keeping my accounting job. Then I would launch my own financial consulting firm. The idea terrified me, which is exactly why I knew I had to do it. When I told Patricia about my plan, she thought I had lost my mind. You want to leave a stable career? I nodded. Why? Because I want to build something that's mine. She stared at me for several seconds. Then she said something interesting. You've changed. I smiled. Good. No, she replied. You've become stronger. For the first time in years, I agreed. The following year was the hardest year of my life. I worked 40 hours a week at my job, then another 30 to 40 hours building my business. Most nights I slept for hours. Sometimes less. But I didn't care. For the first time, every sacrifice felt meaningful. My first client was a small family-owned business. Then came another. Then another. I charged fair rates, delivered exceptional work, answered calls when competitors wouldn't, solved problems others ignored. Slowly, word began spreading. 5 clients became 10. 10 became 15. 15 became 20. Each new client gave me more confidence. More momentum. More proof that I was capable of building something valuable. The gym remained a huge part of my life. By then I had lost over 40 pounds. My body looked completely different. But what mattered more was how I felt. Stronger, calmer, focused, disciplined. For the first time, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. Not Victoria. Not society. Not strangers. I was competing with the man I used to be. And every day, I was winning. Eventually, the moment arrived. I handed Patricia my resignation letter. She read it slowly, then stood up and shook my hand. I always thought you'd do something great. I laughed. That's not what you said a year ago. She smiled. No, but sometimes people surprise you. As I walked out of Harrison and Associates for the final time, I wasn't scared. I was excited because for the first time in my life, the future belonged entirely to me. The second year after my divorce wasn't about survival anymore. It was about growth. The business continued expanding faster than I had ever imagined. What started as a side project at a folding table inside a tiny apartment had become a legitimate company. I hired my first assistant, a highly organized woman named Jennifer Martinez. Jennifer seemed capable of managing 10 different problems at the same time without breaking a sweat. Honestly, she kept the entire operation running smoothly. Soon after, I moved out of the apartment office and into a professional suite downtown. It wasn't luxurious, but it represented something important. Proof that all the sacrifices had been worth it. The client list continued growing. 50 clients, then 70-5. Then over 100. Every month brought new opportunities, more referrals, more contracts, more success. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just earning money. I was creating impact. I helped struggling business owners avoid bankruptcy. I helped families create financial security. I helped entrepreneurs turn dreams into profitable companies. The work felt meaningful. And for the first time, I felt meaningful. The biggest transformation, however, wasn't financial. It was personal. For years, I had measured my value through Victoria's eyes. If she approved of me, I felt worthy. If she criticized me, I felt inadequate. Now, that power belonged to me. I no longer needed validation. I no longer needed permission. I no longer needed anyone's approval. I bought a condo in a beautiful neighborhood. Nothing flashy, nothing designed to impress strangers. Just a comfortable place that felt like home. I upgraded my wardrobe. Started taking better care of myself. Not because I wanted attention, because I respected myself enough to do it. My brother Lucas noticed immediately. During Christmas dinner, he stared at me across the table. Dude, he laughed. You look like a completely different human being. I smiled. That's because I am. He hesitated before asking the question. Have you heard anything about Victoria? I shrugged. No. And it was true. I had blocked her years ago, not out of anger, out of necessity. You can't move forward while constantly looking backward. A few months later, Jennifer mentioned something she'd seen online. Looks like your ex is engaged. I looked up from my paperwork. To Damien, she nodded. Big wedding plan next spring. I simply returned to work. Jennifer studied me carefully. That doesn't bother you at all. No, and surprisingly, it didn't. Single quotes. Victoria had become part of my history. Not my future. Then came the gala, the event that changed everything. One of my largest clients served on the board of a children's hospital charity organization. He invited me to attend their annual fundraising gala. Normally, I avoided those types of events, but something told me to go. So I accepted. That evening, I put on a custom-tailored tuxedo, got a fresh haircut, and arrived at one of the most elegant hotels in the city. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Live music echoed through the ballroom. Successful people filled every corner of the room. I spent most of the evening networking. Meeting business owners, potential investors, future clients. Then suddenly, I felt it. That strange feeling that someone is watching you. I turned around. And there she was. Victoria. Standing across the room. Frozen, staring directly at me. For several seconds, neither of us moved. The look on her face was impossible to describe. Shock, confusion, disbelief, all mixed together. Eventually, she started walking toward me. Slowly. Asterisk, carefully. Like she wasn't completely sure I was real. When she reached me, her voice sounded uncertain. Cameron, hello, Victoria. Her eyes immediately scanned me from head to toe. The confidence, the physique, the tailored tuxedo, the calm expression, everything. You look incredible. I smiled politely. Thank you. I almost didn't recognize you. 3 years can change a lot. She laughed nervously, clearly. Then she asked a question. What are you doing here? I found that amusing. I'm attending a charity event. You know what I mean? I did. She was asking how someone she once viewed as average had ended up in a room filled with influential people. I'm here with one of my clients. She blinked. Clients? I own a consulting firm. Her expression changed immediately. Before she could ask another question, a familiar voice interrupted. A tall, confident man stepped beside her. Damian Reynolds, exactly as I remembered. Polished. Successful. Professional. His hand rested possessively on Victoria's back. Honey, who's this? Victoria hesitated. This is Cameron, my ex-husband. For a brief moment, Damian studied me. Then recognition appeared. Cameron Foster. I nodded. I've heard of you. Victoria looked shocked. You have? Damian laughed. Of course, his company has developed an excellent reputation. Now it was Victoria's turn to look confused. The conversation became awkward. Painfully awkward. Because, for the first time in her life, Victoria wasn't seeing the version of me she remembered. She was seeing who I had become. Eventually, she asked if we could talk privately. Damian looked uncomfortable, but agreed. Asterisk, we moved to a quieter corner of the ballroom. Away from the crowd. Away from the music. Away from everyone else. For several moments, she simply stared at me. Then she said something unexpected. Cameron, do you remember me? The question caught me off guard. What kind of question is that? She looked down, then back. Up, I mean us. The way things used to be. I understood what she was really asking. She wasn't talking about memory. She was talking about regret. I took a slow breath. The man you remember doesn't exist anymore. Her eyes filled with emotion. Then she whispered 4 words. I made a mistake. Years earlier, hearing those words would have changed everything. Now, I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No desire for revenge. Just peace. Victoria continued speaking. She talked about the wedding, the success. The lifestyle, the things she thought she wanted. Then she looked directly into my eyes. And seeing you tonight made me realize what I lost. I listened quietly. When she finished, I answered honestly. You didn't lose me. You lost a version of me, a version that wasn't finished becoming who he needed to be. Tears formed in her eyes. But look at you now. You're everything I wanted. I smiled gently. No, I'm everything I needed. There's a difference. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached for my arm. I still have feelings for you. I looked at the engagement ring on her finger, then back at her. Victoria, you're about to marry a good man. I thought he was what I wanted. Maybe he is. She shook her head. No, what I wanted was you. I understood her feelings. But I also understood something she didn't. She wasn't in love with the man she left. She was attracted to the man I became. And that man only existed because she left. The person standing here today was built from the pieces of the person you walked away from. If you had stayed, this version might never have existed. The tears finally spilled down her cheeks. So that's it. I nodded. That's it. She looked heartbroken. But strangely, I wasn't. Because closure had already happened years ago. She simply arrived late. I gave her one final piece of advice. Go build your life. Be happy. But don't spend the rest of your life wondering about roads you didn't take. Then I walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. 6 months later, I heard that Victoria and Damian got married exactly as planned. Beautiful wedding. Luxury honeymoon. New house. I was genuinely happy for them. As for me, Life continued getting better. The company landed its biggest contract ever. Revenue exploded. The team expanded. I bought a new home, started planning for the future, and eventually met someone special. Her name was Samantha. She wasn't impressed by money or status or success. She simply appreciated me for who I was. One evening, while sharing drinks with Lucas, he asked a final question. Do you think Victoria regrets leaving? I thought back to the look on her face at the gala, the sadness, the realization, the regret. Then I smiled. Probably, but regret is something everyone pays eventually. He nodded. Then asked another question. Do you regret any of it? The marriage, the divorce, the heartbreak, the tiny apartment, the endless work, the struggle. I thought carefully before answering, not for a second, because every painful moment had shaped me. Every setback had strengthened me. Every loss had guided me toward becoming the man I was meant to be. Looking back now, I understand something important. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened for you. Sometimes losing everything is exactly what forces you to discover your true potential. And sometimes the person who breaks your heart unknowingly gives you the greatest gift of all. The opportunity to rebuild yourself. Stronger, wiser, and better than ever before. That's the real karma, not watching someone else suffer, but becoming so successful, fulfilled, and complete that the pain they caused no longer controls your life. And in the end, that's exactly what happened to me.